Hello everybody, it is me, Pacific. Well, I've had a week to think about things. Started school last week and moving on down the road, and I was on my way to work the other day and I heard Dr. David Jeremiah on the radio here in Denver, Colorado, station called KPOF-AM. Very good station. It's more old school, not all that rock music, and it's just good preaching and teaching and some more what I call the older generation style of music for worship and such. He said, do you notice that people aren't thankful? He says, look at our own country, America. Go to the mall, get out there in traffic, and there is no grace. Well, for those that say Pacific always talks about traffic, I keyed in on that one. In the last week, since the start of school, I have lost count of how many times people go out of their way to be absolutely dangerous and rude behind the wheel. You put on your turn signal in Colorado, 20 cars will not let you in. Thank God for that one individual who flashes his high beams, and I stick my arm all the way out the window and wave thanks and flash my fours. I will tell you something. If it isn't for those few kind people, we'd never get around. I have watched in the last week the stuff that people will do. They'll be behind me. They'll speed out around me, cut me off simply to make a right or a left turn. Oh yes, I give them a horn. The other day, I'm at an intersection, four-way stop sign, in my pickup. It's quitting time. I'm going home. I've had enough of the traffic for a day, and I'm just trying to get home. Go to turn left. It's my turn. Everybody waits. I start to go. A woman in an SUV doesn't punch it, but she starts to turn the corner. I laid on the horn. She slams on the brakes and glares at me, and I'm like, get out of the way. It amazes me that we live in a society where people cannot wait their turn. I think of the book, Everything I Needed to Know About Life, I learned in kindergarten. What really amazes me is the camera would come in so handy with this, because we need to broadcast to America in the face of this so-called greatest country on earth, showing the way adults with suits and ties and nice cars behave around a school bus, my pickup. And I think to myself over and over, the guy in the Beamer with the collared shirt, the tie, the cocky, confident look, and I see the way he drives and said, you went to college to learn how to drive like that? We live in a culture with no grace. We live in a culture, get on the freeway when you got several feeder lanes coming into the main trunk, and watch what happens. It amazes me when you have tight-end traffic and people start getting aggressive like rats in a cage. Somebody's bound and determined to pass on the right shoulder and pass 50 cars and then just cut somebody off. And I ask myself over and over, what makes people do this? Young punks, 40, 50-year-old men in their SUVs, Mercedes, Lexus, Beamers, Audis. Women. Women are no better drivers today than men. I will say this, and I will say it to my dying day. When it comes to letting my big bus in, men are more likely to wave me on, flash the high beams, or yield to let me in. I always say thanks with a flashing of the four-ways or hand out the window or both. Women, they pretend they don't see you, they punch it, and then they stay right even with you. Okay, lady, now you successfully not let me in. Can you at least pull up so I can get in? I have found that women play more games on the roads than males do, the passive-aggressive female. These are the same women that would go to the office every day and go, hi, how are you today? And play the fake game. I've lived long enough. I've watched women behind the wheel, and boy, if you want to see a power struggle start, watch them in their car. Hands down. It isn't just me. I've talked to other drivers that log in miles and have been driving buses or trucks for years. American women are less likely to cut somebody slack than another man. I find that interesting. Women supposedly mature faster than boys, and for all the accusations that women have made about how selfish males are, I have to chuckle. This week, more women ran my stop sign than men. One, when I laid on the horn, she threw up her hands like this and stopped halfway down my bus. I'm like, okay, at least she caught herself. I didn't turn it in. Some women look me right in the eye as they're going through and I'm laying on the horn pointing at the stop sign. I'm amazed when I go to pull and I see a car pull out from behind me on a residential street 25 miles an hour. And I put my hand out the window, I lay on the horn as they're coming up alongside the bus and I point. Some stop. And I think, what is going through your heads? Stop for flashing red lights. I wonder how many Americans actually, in their impatience and me-first mentality, have actually thought out the ramifications. If a kid darts out in front of my bus and they hit it, they are in so much legal stew, it's not even funny. And when I say stew, it will be on that burner for years. Lawsuits getting their insurance, lawsuits against their estate. Let me tell you something, Americans. You hit a kid, there's going to be no mercy. Because the parents that lost their little kid, they're going to get you. And a very high-paying, high-cost, powerful attorney will be the first to step up to the plate to salivate over that cash cow. I watch people, the right lane ends, the left lane ends, and Americans being the sophisticated intellectual elite that they are, lane ends, merge right, lane ends, merge left. Nope, I don't want to wait in line, so I'm going to pass all these vehicles, and then here's the kicker. I won't even use my turn signal. They're just going to go, somebody honks, and they get annoyed. Why is it that Americans, when they provoke and do something clearly wrong, when somebody reacts to that, they get their panties in a wad? Does anybody want to answer that one? Do these people really get up in the morning and think that they've got God status, that they've got a free pass? It's so funny. I was in the break room at work one day and I saw the Colorado News, one of the stations, I don't remember which channel it was, said, "Do you have a news tip for us? Do you have a story that you think we should air?" And I said out loud, I said, "Yeah, I'd like to get a video camera, and do a narration of the 9 news and 7 news vehicles that speed around me and no turn signals. That ought to be a story, but I bet you they won't air that one." How about one of the sports broadcasters? Colorado News. Buses only. Parks in the bus zone. A bus pulls up and says, "Hey, you need to move." The professional that works for Colorado News yelled at one of our bus drivers and said, "Do you know who I am?" "Oh, I'm well aware of who you are, but the rules apply to everybody, and you're not in a news vehicle anyway." This person was picking up his child. When I heard that story, I could no more look at him on the news and thought, yep, we're groomed, we're polished. Good evening, everybody. I'm here to be your sports reporter. And I couldn't help but think, you're an idiot. You're a flaming, overpaid idiot to think that the rules don't apply to you. That's why I have a problem with the news in America. You go to any of the local news stations in any American city and watch the way their reporters are driving the company vehicles with the news all over it. Most people don't think about it. I think about it. Coming up next, Pacific has a story showing you what your average reporter drives like. I think it's funny. I think often I would love to have my own news station that reports the news that matters, the news that people would really get offended by, but needs to be aired. And every time in that, we have a video spotlight showing what people do around buses, zeroing in on their face, their car, and their license plate, and put it out there. I notice in Russia, the drivers have gotten so bad that almost everybody has a dash cam. There's some TV show on in the morning after I get back from routes that shows video clips of motorcycles rear-ending cars and the driver flipping up and then landing on the roof of the car and surviving. And they showed somebody running a red light in Russia and a vehicle getting literally torn in two by a truck. And I thought, wow, Russia has really got a driver problem. The thing in America is if all of us had dash cams, I guarantee you, it would probably change the way some people drive. It would sure be good for insurance companies. I have seen in America that the reason people behave the way they behave is they think they have anonymity. And it amazes me how tough people feel surrounded by skin thickness metal. I look at the people who don't leave for work on time, that don't allow themselves enough time, and they got to race, and they got to haul around. I've watched what I call driver neurosis. I've pulled up at a red light, 20 blocks, going the speed limit in a school bus, and I'll look over at the cocky, arrogant guy, no turn signals, weaving in and out, cutting people off all the way down the line, and I'll just look out the window and look at him. And you ought to watch the neurosis begin. Light changes, squeals a tire in his Sequoia. Ooh, impressive. Wind up that plastic engine, buddy. Now he's bound and determined to speed some more. Or he'll glare at you and start giving you the mile-high salute. I think, how come people can't just stop and go, you know, I just made a complete fool out of myself. Maybe I ought to just chill out. Slow down. You know the guys. They get on the freeway. Oh, I don't like all this traffic. The adrenaline goes up. They're standing on that accelerator, and they're going to fight to get 2 car lengths ahead of somebody else. Right lane ends. Oh, good. All these nice people are waiting in line. Cut in. As I told you, viewers, I had a guy, his lane ended. He was in a very expensive Range Rover. Passed me on the right, halfway down the length of my bus. He starts laying on the horn because the freeway barricades, the cement barricades, are moving in to define my lane. His lane is gone. The dotted lines are gone. And all I did was keep straight, going, don't move to the right or this fool's going to hit you. Trust me, everything in me wanted to say, all I got to do is turn 2 inches to the right. And this guy's done. Broadside collision, passing a bus on the right, instant ticket, instant fault. That would look real good on his insurance. Aggressive driving around a school bus, illegal passing on the right. And I ask myself every day, do these people even think of the term legal? That would be blasted on the Colorado news? that guy and his vehicle would be all over the Colorado news, and nobody. This is what's funny. Drivers out there are bad, and they hate school buses, but if they saw that, the first thing they'd say is, what an idiot. He's trying to pass a school bus on the right, even though they themselves would try it themselves. No, Americans don't think. One of the biggest things I see out there in traffic is there is no grace. They demand and take it themselves, but they give it to no one. I've had people haul butt, pass around me. I've let them in, turn signal, everything. They don't wave thanks. And then I get into other lanes and get on down the line, and then they're somewhere, and I wait, put my signal on. You think they'll let me in? No. That's why Pacific has formed the view you can fool people of who you are until they see how you drive your car. And the thing is, that is so true. More than going to church on Sunday, more than being in the workplace, watch how people drive. Watch how they act out there. Do they have patience? You'll see it. Are they humble? You'll see it. Do they think they're better than anybody? they entitled? One of the dumbest things I see out here in Colorado is when we have tight-in rush hour traffic. I always laugh at the term rush hour. Nobody's rushing anywhere. You can't, except the fool that's bound and determined to be Mario Andretti and get one car length ahead of you. I watch the driver dynamics, and everybody crowds each other. I watched the other day as a car driven by a male rear-ended a female. He's following too close because people are funny. When you get into tight-in traffic, everybody says, oh, I don't want anybody cutting in. I've learned something. I deliberately keep a space cushion because I know that even if I try to close that gap, they'll still try to get into 4 feet between me, my bumper, and the vehicle in front of me. And it is bad driving policy to be that close to anybody, period. The other day, I stopped because the traffic across the intersection was all the way to the other crosswalk. And it says right there, do not block intersection. Green light turns red. You're going to be blocking traffic. So I waited. There was not enough room for me to get the length of my 77 passenger bus in there. So what did two guys do? One woman with Minnesota plates and some business guy in an SUV cut around me from the left and pull up. I honked. If you were to ask those people if they think they're good drivers, they would always say, oh, yes. No courtesy going, hey, that big bus is going to need that space when that car moves forward. Nope. They don't care. And I watch people crowd up on each other on the freeways and form this railroad car train of, I'm not going to let anybody in. And I've watched something. Those that have to merge, those that have to yield, they're the ones that cause the biggest traffic problems of all. Instead of flowing together, instead of people keeping a nice space distance between each other, I've thought, traffic would work so well if people would learn how to merge, signal, and wait for the gap and move in. But in Colorado, they've got the yield sign, they've got the yield all the way, and they'll scream up on that freeway and just bully over. And I sit there and go, these are adults. These are people my age and older behaving this way. We already know the 20 and 30-year-olds in this country don't know how to drive. We already know that the young women in this country do not know how to drive at all. And I was thinking this week, just in 1 week, 90% of the women I looked over at in their cars were fiddling with their cell phones while at red lights. When the light turned green, I watched them and they're still putzing with it. I have watched a new trend taking place. We have left turn arrows and they suck. Major heavy traffic intersection, there's 20 cars in the left turn lane. I watched the turn lane light go green, yellow, red. Just like that. I'm like, one car? The car is a quarter of the way in the intersection, that thing's turning yellow. So 3 cars run the sucker. If you get a woman who's putzing with her cell phone, we miss the light. At that point, I give a friendly tap. Up goes the middle finger, and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm on a schedule. It is amazing, and it's getting worse. And we were talking about the traffic in Denver the other day, supervisors, managers, and said it is bad out there. I saw that this morning Boston was rated as one of the worst cities for drivers. Drivers, I think they said every 4.4 years will get in an accident. They base that on studies with the insurance agencies. And I do look at any place. When I go to America, I watch the way people drive. And I look at that and go, how are these people driving? Years ago when I went to Seattle and I was in a moving truck and I was going to get on the interstates and stuff, I noticed people were very friendly about letting me in out there, surprising me. But that was back in the 90s. Put my signal on and they would let me in. And Denver's always been aggressive. It was aggressive in the 90s. Nothing's changed. The only thing that's changed, the volume of people that have moved here, is intensified. And now everybody's aggressive. And it's so funny. I'll see blasé looking, I'm sorry to say this, viewers, but women that aren't pretty, the plain Janes, dressed in their boring, dowdy clothes, going to office, and they're the same ones that would never want to offend or say anything that's politically incorrect. And I watch them behind the wheel. They are aggressive and rude and will cut you off. And that same person would get out of their vehicle and around her coworkers would talk in this soft conservative voice, and you just think, wow. What is it about driving that brings out the real you? And the young guys that watch this would laugh and go, what an idiot. And I know why they're saying that. They're the same ones that think it's okay to be rude, rude, rude. I was amazed at how many people in Denver have actually told me, well, cop will pull you over for going the speed limit if the traffic's going faster than that. I said, I've never heard of that in my life. That is a lie. If you're going too fast for existing conditions, yes, you can get a ticket for going the speed limit. And I don't even see them doing that. Look at the SUVs, four-door pickups, flying down icy roads on an icy day, not just going the speed limit, but going over it. And I'm thinking, where are the police? I still am curious why people get so aggressive in bumper-to-bumper traffic. And every day, right here, there are always accidents because somebody can't wait their turn. And the people that will not yield, they're the ones that slow down freeway traffic. The people that crowd up on each other's bumpers in the through lanes, that impedes the flow of traffic. And I did an experiment a few years ago. Keep your following distance. Yes, people are going to cut in. But I've noticed something about human nature. If you try to close that gap, I don't know why people do this, because they're going to get the ticket. Their lane ends, they pass everybody, and the two vehicles in front of him are not. They're clearly not going to let somebody in, and the guy decides, I'm going to do the challenge, and he will start encroaching right in front of other people's vehicles, and I think, boy, is that dumb. Because at his angle, and from where he sits, if that car hits him, the guy who's not merging properly is going to be ticketed. But it's amazing. People will risk, because of their pride and their competitiveness, they will risk an accident, which will reflect on their own insurance record with higher rates. And I've even heard people say, well, I've got insurance, I'm not worried about it. Maybe insurance companies need to change their policy. You're caught aggressive driving, we will not insure you anymore. Done. That might be an incentive. But what amazes me is people in new, expensive SUVs. I remember when my folks would buy a new car, a new truck, man, they babied it, were careful. Now today, easy come, easy go. I just wanted to share some thoughts, but we live in a culture where there's not much grace. I found it interesting that David Jeremiah said that America seems to be the most blessed and the least thankful. I find it interesting that some of the biggest offenders on America's roadways are those that are middle class, upper middle class, well off. The ones that have the nice cars instead of appreciating. They're the most petty. They're the most obnoxious, the rudest, and the most guilty of causing most of the road rage on our highways and roadways in any metro or small town. Something in them thinks that the law doesn't apply to them. All this week I heard over and over and over drivers calling on the two-way radio. I cannot get into the school bus loading zone. There are parents parked all over the place. I've honked. They flip me off. They won't move. There's signs that say school bus loading only, and it gives the times. 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Holidays, weekends excluded. And I've said loudly enough in loading zones where I see this with parents hearing me, I said apparently these parents need to go back to school and learn how to read. But the sign is very clear. And as I've said to people in America, there's a big disconnect between yuppie parents, ghetto parents, middle class parents, suit and tie parents. There's a big disconnect between them connecting the dots mentally and saying the biggest thing that your children are learning is not in that classroom. It's by your modeling, whatever it is you're modeling. I notice in America people don't like to be convicted anymore. They don't like to be told they're wrong. They do not like it when you react to their offensiveness. But those same ones will get right in your face if you step on their toes. I find that very hypocritical, and I find it very interesting. And I'm going to shatter something once and for all. Every day I go down 8th Avenue by Quebec Street, for those of you that are familiar with Denver. Heavy traffic, that's kind of a downtown express route to downtown Denver. Downtown Denver is unique in that a lot of people go downtown to work. It's still one of those old-fashioned cities where things pretty much emanate from downtown. A lot of cities have more suburban areas, and Denver has the Denver Tech Center, which is also a huge... And it's funny, the people that work downtown and the people that work in the Denver Tech Center are more likely to be dressed up, formal clothing, not formal, but business class professional, and they're the worst drivers almost all of the time. There's a school zone that is quite a few blocks long, flashing yellow lights, this side of the intersection, across, and continuing. You would think that people would say, hey, that school bus is going 20 miles an hour, and they're all passing me. All of them, every single one. Women in professional attire, men in professional attire, and then they cut in front of me with no signal. The other day there was a cop sitting down there, and no one would pass my bus. They wouldn't even go 20. They're going 15. And I watch this all the time, that when a cop shows up, everybody goes under the posted speed limit. I've got a message to Americans. If you believe it's okay to speed, because you always tell me you're supposed to go with the flow of traffic, how come you're not doing it when the cop's around? I call foul ball hypocrite. You know what's right, and you know what's wrong. When the cop's not around, your standard of morality immediately changes. When the cop's around, you readjust your standard of morality so you don't get a ticket. Why is that? Have you heard what people say when they get pulled over? Oh, the cop's an a-hole. He's just getting a quota. No. There's people that live on that street that have houses. They're trying to back out of their driveways. They're trying to go to work. And they're watching these idiots just speed. And they're calling saying this is a school zone. And they're not honoring it. One of the reasons that cops start showing up and do a crackdown is because of residential complaints. Most people don't know that. They live in their nice brick houses with trimmed yards, and they're tired of it too. Though, I find it ironic when you look at neighborhoods with the parents that got the plastic, yellow, fake kid out, slow children. And that works. People see that and they think, ooh, there might be kids around. But watch mom and dad when they come down that same street, flying. I tell people all the time, driving is too easy. Giving driver's licenses in the U.S. has just become too easy. There's no psychological tests. There's no credentials required. You got to pass a vision test. You got to pass a behind the wheel test and written test, and anybody can do that. I was thinking out loud the other day, the worst thing you can do is give a bunch of immature Americans a 5,000-pound vehicle and say, here you go. Because their immaturity will show up immediately the minute they turn that ignition over. The older I get, I have started to realize that when you get in and drive time is just as important as your time in your office, in your workplace. You need to focus on your driving. If people, the way they drove in traffic, acted that way in their workplace, they would all be fired. The rudeness, the aggression, the inattentiveness, texting on company time, texting while driving. I have a message for American men and women today. What is so important that you have to text in rush hour traffic while driving and almost rear-ending the car in front of you? There's an increasing amount of accidents because of texting and not paying attention, mostly rear-end collisions and red light runners. This week, there's what's called traffic control lights. No intersection, they're just lights, random, here and there, to slow down traffic on a major arterial into downtown. I call them oh crap lights. There's no walk sign. There's nothing to warn you. You're driving along at 30, bing, 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 red. Whoa! I watch suits and ties and women with their cocky look in their Subarus, their SUVs, run a solid red. There's a crosswalk right there. I have stopped my bus because there's children on the right corner stepped out into my lane, and I've stopped. And they're starting to go. Not to get on my bus, but just to cross the street. The unprofessional drivers of Denver are flying in the left lane, not thinking, hey, that bus is stopped. I can't see around it. People are amazing. They would be at fault. Buses stop, kids walk out, boom, just like that. Whenever I see a stopped vehicle in the right or left lane, I slow down and I think, why is he stopped? Is there something in front of it that's going to dart out in front of me? I am amazed at the absolute disregard for common sense behind the wheel of American motorists. Spokane and Washington, I will say, they were a lot more merciful to pedestrians because the law is strict there. Corner to corner is considered a crosswalk whether there's a marked one or not. Here in Colorado, there's the signs that point down, the big yellow signs, shows pedestrian. Excuse me, where we work, we have the break room. We've got, I call it the campus, because we've got one street we cross to get to the bus lot. Then we've got another street we cross to get to the mechanic shop and the parts department and the supply rooms. We have a crosswalk. I'm in the crosswalk and cars will not stop. They'll just keep on going. And it is amazing that Colorado seems to think that when they're in the car, they have the total right of way all the time. Even with a walk sign, and now what they're doing in Boulder, and they have to because people aren't being courteous, they're putting in mandatory crosswalk signs that flash, must stop for pedestrians. You do that and you get caught, automatic ticket. Isn't it sad that we have to legislate common sense? But I want to throw something out there for my evolutionist friends that say we're evolving. Ride with me for a day and I will prove to you the fallacy of that. We're not evolving. We're not evolving at all. I watch humanity changing and getting worse, less kinder. When preachers are saying it, when people are saying it from all walks of life, whether they're Christian, atheist, Buddhist, Muslim. Has anybody paid attention this week to ISIL? That people right here from America are joining with them? The idea that people are basically good is a fallacy. We got people living in this country that have benefited from this country that would gladly join mayhem to attack and cause destruction to the country that they were birthed from. I think it's time for me to make a bold statement. People that want to attack Americans and destroy us, blow up stuff, I say America should go after them and put an end to them right now. I have problems with America, but I will always defend this country. This is my country. And though I have problems with the culture and the attitude of people today, this is my country and it's my home. And because of that, I stand against anybody that believes in being a terrorist against us. I would never support that in any way, shape, or form. Russia was talking tough the other day, saying don't mess with a nuclear Russia. China's been getting more aggressive in their international fly zones and being somewhat bullish around our own fighter jets, to which the Pentagon responded with diplomacy and said, don't do that. People are testing their little muscles out there. Back to the traffic, I asked myself, what is the solution to this? You have to change people's hearts. Because I find it interesting that when the presence of a patrol car shows up, everybody suddenly gets not honest. That's not an accurate word, but they start driving right. Actually, they don't drive right. They go under the posted speed limit. I was in Duluth one day. There was a cop in the left lane. No lights, no inclement weather. Speed limit's 30 on Central Entrance in Duluth. I'm in the right lane. There's 4 lanes divided by a middle turn lane. And I passed him. One of my sharper grade A students, good guy, says, "Man, you just passed a cop." I said, "He doesn't have his lights going. Doesn't have his 4-ways going. It's not inclement weather. It's not heavy traffic. I've done nothing wrong." The kids were shocked. I said, "If you're doing what is right, they're not going to pull you over." I said, "He could be looking for an address off to his left, and that's why he's going slow." I said, if a cop is trying to slow traffic down, they usually put their lights on. And if their lights are flashing and they're going slow, you better not pass them. I've had police follow my bus. I've had police alongside me in traffic, and the kids are like, uh-oh, cop. Why does everybody get scared? So to Americans that think it's okay to speed, I say, well, you guys are hypocrites, because when the cop shows up, you suddenly stop speeding. It's kind of like closet gay people. I know. Well, we're afraid to come out because of the harassment. If you believe something is so right, then why don't you just be who you are and do it? If you believe it's okay to speed and you believe it's okay to be gay, then what are we hiding all this for? How come when the cop shows up, we change our driving habit? You boldly tell everybody, I go with the flow of traffic. Well, the flow of traffic was going along fine until you saw the cop car. Why don't you just set a trend, buddy? Tell that cop, hey, you're not going to pull me for going 5 over. People don't like it when I say this, but the modern rationalizing of most Americans today behind the wheel is nothing short of stupid, unintelligent, and shows how dumb down we as a society are. So, in short, let's wrap this up. Why do Americans speed? Because they're rebellious, because they're impatient, because they're self-centered. Why do Americans not use turn signals? Well, I have a word for most males, and it's usually that thing between their legs. Why do women do it? Well, another not so nice word. Because they don't care about other people. They're ruthless, they're self-centered, and they don't care. To cut 2 inches in front of a school bus? You go to college for that? The bus driver wasn't doing a thing. He was driving in his right lane of traffic, going the posted speed limit, and you're going to send him a, I'm very dissatisfied with you because you're in my way message? Let me tell you something. Intellectualism is not designed by how much money somebody makes. Intellectualism is not designed by what they drive. It is not defined by what neighborhood they live in or what kind of a house they over-mortgage themselves for. Sometimes I've seen some Mexican males and females in beat-up pickups and cars show me more courtesy than so-called white Americans who have the good life. I find that very interesting. Why are Americans in such a hurry? You beat somebody by a nanosecond. You caused all that adrenaline. You're all keyed up. And you think you're God because you have a car that's manufactured off an assembly line just like millions of others? You're not cool. You're not triumphant. It's funny, somebody will buy a Hummer and go, look at me. Wow, another Hummer. I've never seen one of those before. How unique. Clunky, junky, overpriced, gas hogging, too wide. Okay, if you want to pour most of your profits in the gas tank and say you're more intelligent? Nah, I think I'd rather spend the money you spend in gas on an annual trip to Asia every year, because that's how much you're pouring into that thing. Most Americans that buy those expensive vehicles spend more in a mortgage for that vehicle, gas and insurance for that vehicle that could fund me to live in Hong Kong for 6 months for a year. Yes, I've said it. It's amazing what pride does to people. But back to this culture of grace. Let me finish this off with the thing that happened at work this week. Last spring, a woman came up to me who was obese, who was covered with tattoos across the top of her cleavage, her arms, piercings here. She's got some silly little rectangular looking thing stuck in here. Pretty long hair. She'd be very pretty if she lost a few pounds. I've always been kind to her, and last spring she came in and said, "You need to cut your hair. It looks like SHIT. I kid you not, I heard it. I just kind of looked at her and said, that's just wrong. This was on company property. I didn't turn her in. I said, you know what? I like what I'm doing. I'm trying it. And that should have been the end of it. A week ago, she comes up to me, "Hey, how are you? How was your summer? You need to cut your hair." I ignored her and didn't say a word. Thursday, she came up to me again. Clearly, my body language has said, "I'm not talking to you." Several times she's come by and said, "Hey, what's up?" I said, "Hi." My body language has been drawbridges up. I don't want to talk to you. I'm going somewhere with this, males and females. And females, you need to listen up. She comes up to me Thursday and says, "You need to cut your hair," and I'd had enough. Thought she's not getting the hint, so let me make it crystal. Turned around and said, "No, I don't need to cut my hair." "Yes, you do." I said, "No, I don't." I said, "Number one, you're not my girlfriend. Number two, you're not somebody that I have to please or meet some expectations. And number three, you need to stop commenting on my hair." And I walked away. Friday, I sat down at the table by my Filipina friend. That other gal sits there. She sat down. Another woman sitting next to me put her finger on my hair and said, "I like your curls. They're cute." I said, "Thank you." The woman who's been offensive got very angry and said, "Wow, she can comment on your hair and you don't get mad." I said, "Excuse me?" She goes, "Why did you be a smart ass yesterday?" I said, "I wasn't." She goes, "Oh yeah, you did." I said, "I have told you several times your comments are offensive. You don't seem to stop. You haven't gotten the hints that I've been annoyed by it, and you keep on going and telling me like a child I need to cut my hair." I said, "What part of being offensive do you not understand?" And then I looked at her and I said, "I'm done with this conversation." She goes, "Well, I am too." Good. We're on the same page. I didn't say that. Fill out my paperwork. The woman sitting next to me looks at her and says, "Why are you so mad today?" She starts exploding in a release of profanity. "I'm effing tired of this. He's two-faced. Blah, 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 blah. I'm one of the few people that's nice to him in here." I'm thinking, one of the few? There's at least 40% of the people in that break room that are kind to me and want to talk to me every day. At least. Then she goes on and said, "He wants to smart ass me? I'll be a bitch right back. I'm not going to take that shit. I'm sick of it. F. I got up, walked right over to the computer, and started writing a full thing to my supervisor. Went in and talked to her. I said, "Don't do anything about this yet." I said, let's hold on this. So the afternoon came after routes, all that, and I said, "Can I talk to you a minute?" We went outside, and I said, maybe I overreacted a little bit. I tried to take the high road, viewers, and I said, maybe I overreacted a little bit. I really didn't feel that I did. And I said, you obviously got very mad by my response yesterday, but I said, have you stopped and thought about that where I've been in life, that people have laughed and mocked and made fun of glasses and my looks and this and that? And I said, 3-4 different times you got to go on about my hair. Well, I didn't appreciate it. You turned around and said, well, you're not my girlfriend. I said, it's true. Why do I have to please you? You're not interested in me. We're not close. Why does it matter the way I wear my hair? Do I comment on you and your style? And I didn't even then. Trust me. I'm going to say, you're commenting on the length of my hair. Let me tell you what I think about this dork thing you got stuck in your lip and all this other stuff and all the tattoos and how much weight you're gaining. Viewers, males and females, I would be in trouble and sent to the office and probably given either a suspension or a termination if I'd have said any of that to her. Women in the workplace can smart off and mouth off and cuss at us men and nothing is done. I kid you not. Unless management has it in for them anyway. So I went outside. I tried to be very calm and I said, I actually liked you as a person. I don't hate you. But I said, when you said what you said last spring, it made me very defensive and I didn't appreciate that. So she denied saying the SHIT. I said, oh, no, I clearly heard it. And you went on to even say, how do you expect to get a girlfriend growing your hair like that? I said, you just cross boundary after boundary after boundary. And I said, I'm sorry. Maybe I should have told you that day and said, that is offensive. I tried to be nice. And I said, that in this break room that we all have to be careful what we say. Of course, she wasn't that day at all. If any male had come to me with a girl talking like that, unprovoked, I'm sitting at the table and she starts in on me, I would have said, you get a 2-day suspension. You cannot talk like that to fellow employees. Go home and think about it without pay. That's unacceptable. But because she's a woman and management is mostly female, nothing would be usually done. In fact, it went through my mind that if I pushed that issue, she could lie. She could do anything. And I said, people get mad that I talk about feminism and Western women. But the reason I talk about it is because I do my job well. I had an evaluation just a week ago. It was outstanding. I had a driver ride check by one of the trainers and said this to me. I feel safe with my own personal children riding your bus. You ought to see how many senior drivers scare me to death when I do a ride check on them. I said, you're joking, right? He says, no. Railroad crossing procedures aren't done right. Don't use their turn signals. Don't stop behind the stop sign. On and on and on. Speeding. Nobody's perfect, and I'm not claiming to be, but I try to do my job well. So then the girl says to me, well, I accept your apology. She didn't offer one herself. And said, we can still be friends. Now, mind you, this is the silly world we live in. We've never been friends. We're workplace acquaintances. We've always chit-chatted. We don't involve. She's got a boyfriend. It's funny what people call friends in this country. She goes, but I don't think we could ever be friends like we were before. I mean, we're still friends. I'm not your enemy, but, I look at you so different. When you were ignoring me last week, I thought you're just like everybody else. I said, no, I'm not just like everybody else. I said, I'm human. And when you make offensive comments, I hurt and bleed just like everybody else, lady. And I said, with all due respect, have you stopped and put yourself in my shoes and tried to ask yourself how that must sound? I wanted to go further and say, what would you do if I said you're too obese and heavy and that's disgusting? But I can't, viewers. In American society, Pacific is not blowing smoke out of his butt. He's speaking a truth. Feminism has destroyed rational, two-way conversation. Women can unzip the front of their pants, pull them down, and back their big butt up to you and poo all over you. And if you react to that in the wrong way, you'll be in the office and you'll be fired. I talked to my Filipina friend. She goes, wow, I saw that you tried to make peace with her. that's good. And I said, well, it didn't go so well. I said, it ended calmly. But I looked at her and I gave her the sad look. And I said, she doesn't want to be my friend anymore. And she goes, what? I told her what happened. And she goes, oh my gosh, what a drama queen. She said she's the one that started all this. I talked to several other people because he said, hey, what were you guys talking about downstairs? I said, you want to know? And I told them. Even one of the older Mexican ladies looked at me and said, you know, these young people today have no you-know-what clue. I said, yeah, you got that right. The first week of school, Pacific is minding his own business. I've chosen a course this year that there are certain people I'm not going to talk to. And when somebody's offensive and a jerk, the first time I just ignore them. If they don't stop and keep going, then I'm going to write it up. With her, I thought I'd turn around and say, no, I wasn't a smart aleck. I have had enough. And you know what bothers me? Not once did that woman look at herself and say, you know, I'm sorry, I was offensive and I was rude and I can understand. Now I'm in the penalty box. Well, I'm not going to be as close as a friend to you. And I thought to myself, we never were friends. We chat at work. Then I tried something else. I said, you had told me last year that your boyfriend cheated on you and how that really made you mad. Do you remember that? She goes, yeah. I said, you're still with him. You still make love with him. You're still with him. I said, did you forgive him all that? Well, yeah, I did. I said, I didn't cheat on you. I didn't hurt you. I didn't do anything. I said, now you tell me you're going to look at me different because I reacted to a comment you made, several times made? Yeah, but I didn't expect you to react that way. I said, react what way? That I firmly turned around and said, no, I don't need to cut my hair. I don't need to please you. You're not my girlfriend. When I say Americans can't handle truth, viewers, I'm dead on. When I say American women cannot put their transmission in reverse and back up, let me tell you how many times I go to make a right turn at an intersection. I've got room to make the turn because there's no car down there yet. You know, I make a right, and here comes a car, and I go to make the right. What does a woman do? Races right up there, and then I got to stop. She looks at me. And I've learned, I used to go like this. That used to work. Not anymore. So I just sit there and fold my arms. They'll sit there and wait till the light turns green, jerk to the right, and go through the intersection. Like, they couldn't even freaking back up 2 feet. This woman yesterday couldn't back up 1 inch. That was all turned around that I handled it wrong. I didn't do this right. And I think you're just like everybody else. One of the hallmarks of a lot of American women is they like victimization. They like drama. They go and provoke. They throw a can of gas on a male and then throw in the match, walk away laughing. And when the man comes back and responds to what they've done, they just can't handle it. What does all this have to do with traffic? It has to do with the prevailing mentality. We don't live in a culture of grace. I'm a woman. I can come up and say your hair looks like SHIT, but don't you dare say anything to me or I'll be in that office and I'll have you fired. That same woman, viewers, has written up other people for making comments that were offensive to her. Guess what? One of the comments was to her. A Christian man came up to her at work and said, you know, I don't think it's right that you're showing all that cleavage and you got tattoos all over you. That's not very ladylike. She ran and filed a complaint. The guy was suspended for a couple days, I believe. Like, wow. He was just being honest, because she does show her cleavage in the workplace. I was actually nice to her. She is a pretty woman in her own right. Yeah, she needs to lose a lot of weight. And for somebody to just start commenting about my hair in a very rude manner, looks like SHIT, and precipitate all this, and then I finally, body language, I keep ignoring her, avoiding her. Hi, Pacific, how are you? Fine. and walk by. I'm smart enough to pick up when a woman's talking to me in a terse, walled-up drawbridge tone. I don't go after her. I go, ooh, she don't want to talk to me. Hint, clue, get a clue. I will never fully get away from critiquing America and the way people act because I'm watching this play out daily. I talked to a driver yesterday that I respect who is a Mexican woman, and this was the words out of her own mouth. She goes, let me guess, the woman you're referring to is Hispanic. I said, yes. She goes, figures. She said, all these young people are like that. They're racist, they're haters, everything's everybody else's fault, not their own. I said, wow. And that from a Hispanic woman. She told me her own story. She goes, it's Friday today, Pacific. The first week hasn't even officially ended, and look at all the problems in there already. I think that some people at work need to be required to wear a shirt that says, does not play well with others. I'm really convinced. But I did something, viewers. I want to share something positive. I went out of my way to be nice to some people who aren't very nice. One was a Christian woman who's not very nice. She came in and made some party decorations for a 1-year-old birthday party, and I said, those are actually pretty. She lit up, showed me photo, and it was all about her, but now she's nice to me. Another woman that I didn't care for, I've been nice to, and we say hi, and I gave her a hug. And I'm trying to make an effort to, and there was even several other women that I've started to say, I'm going to reach across the aisle. And I found out that some of them are okay. There's some that are troublemakers and got a target all over their back that any connection with them will result in you getting sent to the office. So I asked my boss, there's some people I don't want to say 2 words to, please don't write me up. I cannot write you up if you don't want to talk to them. Thank you. If they want to talk to me about work-related stuff, I will listen. If it's chitty chat, I'm not even going to say hi. I like my route, like my job, but yes, living in American culture with males and females in the workplace is like walking around in Bosnia trying to avoid stepping on landmines. And I joked to another female the other day, I said, walking through this break room is like, oh, there goes my leg. And she started laughing and played it up. She goes, I know, there's times I come in here and I think, can at least blow my left leg off because my right leg really hurts. And I started laughing. So other people see it. Even other women see it. Women have come to me and said, do you know that most of the problems in this break room are caused by certain women in here? And I said, yeah. It's fun, isn't it? And this isn't just my workplace. Go to your office tower. I got a woman friend in Tennessee who the office politics and the women and their cattiness and their stuck-upness and the bosses giving them outstanding reviews and raises and this and that. And she said, there's so much favoritism and butt kissing around here. Every viewer of mine can tell me a story about their own personal American workplace and how stupid this stuff is. It goes on from shore to shore. It's not unique to my place. We're a culture with no grace. David Jeremiah said it. As far as I'm concerned, that settles it, and I believe it because I watch it every day. We're not getting an education in this country, folks. We're not really changing the most important thing of all, the heart. Pacific is trying. He's trying new things. I tried to take the upper hand and say, be the big man and say, I'm sorry if you felt, but it did bother me. I'm not going to be your friend like I was before. All right, you go play your little drama. And you know what? As soon as I got away from her, I said, thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I appreciate it. And I ended it by that. She went on her way, and I thought, you know what? I think we just need to go back to what we're doing and just don't say anything to her anymore. Just, you know what? We're not friends. No love lost there. This is Pacific signing off. Try to show some grace, folks. If we don't, it's just going to get worse. Bye-bye.